Hello snowboarders of the internet, I am your host TC and today we will be reviewing the Nitro Cannon, aka the BBC, the Big Black Cannon. This board features the cam out camber profile, so what that means is you're going to have camber right in between your feet, and then as you gradually get towards the nose here, right about at the contact point, possibly a little bit before, you'll have rocker in it, and then pretty much right at the fins in the back here, you'll also have rocker. So that rocker will help it float in powder, help it get ease in and out of turns, while that camber is going to provide a little bit more stability and just being able to really throttle down on your turns and pop. The Nitro Cannon comes in a 173 and a 203. I rode this board at Copper Mountain where we did get about 4 fresh inches of snow the night before. It was a pretty flat light where the sun wanted to pop out, but it just couldn't really. It would be like out for 2 seconds when you're going up the chairlift and then pop away from you. And it was also just a really cold day. I used my Ride Fuse boots and my Jones Mercury bindings. When it comes to flex, right in between the feet, this board is gonna be a little bit stiffer than the middle of the road. Now that being said, when you do get to the nose, it is gonna be quite a bit softer, where you're actually feeling that nose bouncing up and down like a lowrider out there at pretty much any speed above cruising, I would say. When you get to the tail, it is gonna be more stable. You do have a little bit stiffer of a tail in that sense, where you can kind of stand on it a little bit more, but don't be fooled, those fins are still gonna be a little bit on the softer side. When it comes to torsional flex, this board is easy to foot steer. Because it is so narrow in between your feet, you don't have to put that much into it to get it to steer, which honestly helps because this thing is so big. Now, when it comes to stability, you are gonna feel quite a bit of stability underneath your feet. Even though that nose is gonna be bouncing up and down, you do have a long, effective edge on it. So that will hold all those push piles, that crud, all that stuff. It holds up pretty well in it, where you're not losing your edge, you're not skipping out or anything like that. It actually grips pretty well. When it comes to those micro vibrations, you're really not feeling them underneath your feet. More of what you're feeling is gonna be that nose kind of bouncing around, but you're not feeling anything that's gonna cause any discomfort or anything that's really gonna cause your feet or legs to go numb. When it comes to ollies and pop on this board, it does feel a little bit weird, where it does have a good snap to it, but when you go to ollie this board, you will feel that nose kind of like flaps in the wind, just like a bird's wing does really, where you can kind of feel it fighting against you. That being said, it doesn't feel like it wants to pop as high as pretty much the energy you put into it, where it does have a good edge hold when taking off and landing, but it just lacks a little bit more that you really want out of it for it being this long. Hey, why don't you like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss any other reviews we have coming out. I mean, I'm not Zeb Powell, so when you are going to butter it, it's not gonna look like his. When you're buttering on the nose, you have such a long nose that when you actually get that press locked in, both of your feet are gonna be off the ground, and you can actually feel those contact points kind of engaging, where it kind of the opposite of fishtails, I would say, where it feels a little bit washy on it. When you're buttering the tail, it feels a little bit more normal. You have that normal bit of real estate to work with, where you could press it in, still have that 1 foot barely off the ground, where this one's just kind of flying in the air, and it feels a lot more stable. This board is actually really fun to carve, where it feels like a long surfboard. So you can really just throw it down and at medium speeds, put that elbow down, put your ass down, whatever, but it's gonna hold that edge where you really can shift your hips into it, drive that knee towards the middle of the board, and it will hold that edge for you. Now, when you're on those short carves, it does well. When you get into the trees, however, it gets a little sketchy. It kind of feels like you're driving a bus through the trees, where you have to watch that nose when you're going to carve. You see that tree, you go to carve back, oh shit, there's another tree because your nose is so long. So just keep that in mind. You're gonna have to plan out about 3 or 4 turns in advance if you plan on taking it in the trees. Now, when you get to those medium and longer carves, it does hold up surprisingly well. Even though that nose is extremely soft, you still have plenty of real estate to work with to drive that board. And yes, it does Euro carve extremely well, so feel free to just rip a turn on this thing. That's where I had my best time on it. Rider in mind, the person that is gonna be riding this board definitely already has a quiver They pretty much just want this as a novelty board, like to just take out and have fun on those odd days, really. They're not charging the whole mountain on this thing. They're not Zeb Powell. That's pretty much just a select group there. If you want to support us further, head on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP. Sure, I could tell you here, but we have a great video over there getting into it really in depth. I did have a good time on this board. It's not going to be my daily drive or anything like that, but you know, get on it once a year. It is going to be a blast. Just a couple things to be aware of. If you're going to take it in the gondola with you, make sure you reserve at least 1 or 2 spots for it, because this thing got wedged in the gondola for me. Took a little bit extra to get it out, where we had to move some windows and all of that. But overall, it was a fun board. It's not going to be a daily driver or anything like that, but I still really enjoyed it. Comparable boards: the Nidecker Gun, the Korua Pencil, and the Rad Air Tanker. Binding recommendations: the Nitro Team, the Union Force, and the Yes Select. This has been my review of the Nitro Quiver Cannon, aka the BBC. If you liked it, why don't you go check out one of our reviews from the recommended boards.